Councillors, we're about to go live. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Please be upstanding for the Mayor.
Thank you. Do sit down and please remove jackets if you wish. Looks like a very good turnout in this hot weather. I hope we can make this meeting as businesslike and brief as is necessary, but we'll go on for as long as we have to. You all know the procedures if we go on beyond 10 o'clock, but I will call a break, comfort break before then at an appropriate procedure. Right, so on we go, and apologies for absence, please.
So we have apologies for absence from Councillor Lawton, who will be arriving at 7:30, Councillor Morrison, Councillor Relleen, and Councillor Wicks and Councillor Williams. Are there any other apologies? Councillor Austin.
Councillor Atkins, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any others? That's it. Thank you.
Good. Thank you very much. We'll go on to the minutes then, and we've got 3 sets of minutes to approve. I'll take them in turn, and I move approval of all these minutes. And do I have a seconder? Looking at the leader, you ought to do it. Okay, that's fine. The meeting on the 3rd of March, are those minutes agreed, please? Thank you very much. Ditto the 21st of April. Thank you very much. And the 19th of May. Oh, hooray. Thank you very much indeed. And I'll actually sign those later. Item 3 then is declarations of interest. Does anybody want to declare an interest that hasn't been declared already? No, thank you very much. And now I come to announcements, and I'll kick off those. Of course, I've got several announcements, but naturally we'll start with Councillor John Rubini, and I, Deputy Mayor, and a huge number of councillors here went to his funeral, which I personally found very moving and very apposite. I knew John reasonably well. I knew what an awful lot of work he did, or I thought I did, but I learnt an awful lot more. So we will all miss him, both as a fellow councillor and as a friend. I'd also like to pay tribute to Dame Penelope Keith. And she, of course, it was well known by everybody. And as Margot and Audrey, she won our hearts on the TV, of course. But it's perhaps less well known that she did an enormous amount of charitable work in Surrey, and she and Roddy lived in Milford for a very long time, and she was a real power for good. I would like just to rise, please, just to remember her. Thank you very much. Right. At the annual meeting, I did ask councillors for suggestions on what the Mayor's charity should be. And thank you very much, Councillor Long, for making an extremely good suggestion, which I've taken up, of course, and that is a charity called Huckleberries, which is Elstead based, but it basically takes children who are struggling in one way or the other with education, takes them out of school and puts them into a country, a forest environment. So with respite care, I went and visited it. Quite hard to find, I may say, and was enormously impressed with the staff, the children themselves, and a host of goats and pigs and cockerels and all sorts of things. They are actually based on the Hampton estate, and I had a very interesting meeting this lunchtime, in fact, with the Hampton estate, and we've got some plans in motion for some fundraising events for them, of which there'll be more details later, but I wish them well. Attending as ever, of course, lots of events. I won't go through all of them, but I do have to mention Godalming Choir Blast. 130 choirs or so, from local ones and national ones and international ones. I think one came actually from Australia. And blast is the opposite word. Boy, were they loud. They were in the field just next door, and it was a really joyous event. Lots of speeches. Nobody could hear a word, but it was a fantastic afternoon. I also went on the Islamabad Beacon of Peace charity walk, which takes place every year from their base at Tilford. And it was really heartening to see, not just from the Ahmadiyya community themselves, lots of there, but also a great number of other people locally and further afield, all marching, and a lot of money is raised. Nearly coming to the end here. Two flag raisings, one for LGBT Pride Week. Surrey Pride will not take place this year, unfortunately, but because of money problems, but the flag went up. And also, of course, Armed Forces last weekend. And I'll end about events. There's a future event on the 11th of September this year. It's a very sad 25th anniversary of 9/11. You know, that horrific attack, and I really wanted to think we ought to commemorate, or no, we ought to remember that in some way, and so there are plans for that as well for the day. Now, a happy note to end with, if I can find my thing, and that is a couple of awards. And could I congratulate officers and members for being shortlisted and winning some prestigious sector awards. Our officers won the award for the Senior Leadership Team of the Year at the 2026 Municipal Journey, the MJ Awards, a really prestigious award. Technically, it was Guildford Borough Council. That's a name on the tin. But of course, since we are deeply integrated at officer level, I like to think it was our officers that carried them over the line. That's my story. And in addition, the Waverley's finance team were shortlisted as the 2026 Finance Team of the Year at the MJ Awards. And supporting us to achieve a 2-year balanced budget. That's what it says here. And similarly, I think Guildford had the headlines, but it was all up to us, wasn't it? And there's another one, and we weren't involved, but our partners, Guildford Borough Council, won the Bronze Award in the category of Most Improved Council at the 2026 Local Government Chronicle Awards. Let's take some credit for that. Right, good. Okay, so that's my announcement. Yeah, that's my announcement. So we we go on and then Leader, have you got anything you'd like to say?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and just to also second how wonderful many of those events that I also attended were. For those of you that know me well, you can imagine how much I would need to drink to be up dancing in the front of a mosh pit in a thing. And that may have occurred at Choir Blast. So that was a very fun evening for everybody involved. A couple of quick things on LGR. As ever, today is a particular day in the calendar of LGR, the 30th of June, in that today the Section 24 duty applies. What that means from our position here at Waverley is that the best value duty no longer sits from us to Waverley, it is to us to West Surrey. And that will mean that a number of decisions that we may or may not wish to take over the course of the next 6 to 9 months here at Waverley will require secondary confirmation by West Surrey and its cabinet, of which there are a number of us in this room as well from that perspective. So that you will see on some papers going forward further advice that clarifies the Section 24 position for decisions of certain categories, certain levels of finance, certain types of contract. West Surrey has also passed an instrument delegating some powers to effectively make that easier for day-to-day decisions to all local authorities. But I gather West Surrey will be contacting all chief executives and leaders to remind them of their obligations under Section 24 and where the new best value duty sits. We will be hosting here a number of catch-ups with staff. I believe I'm going to be speaking to staff at the next, by the way. I think that's just being confirmed at the moment. And in my new West Surrey hat, I am currently doing the round speaking to council chief executives, their leaders, and where invited, which so far has been all of them, their staff groups at large. So any further question on LGR, very happy to take offline as always. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Chief Executive, have you got anything from anybody else here? No, nothing from senior officers. Good. Thank you very much. So we'll move on to item 5, questions by members of the public. Just to remind everybody here, our rules of procedure state that the questions are tabulated in advance and they are written down. The answers are also written down, and so there's no discussion on that, no speeches on that. However, people who submitted a question which has now been answered do have the right to do a supplementary question, and I've only had notice of one, but I will just check that. Daniel Kudzell, I hope I've pronounced that. No. Ian Colvin. No. Helen Grant. Thank you. Nigel Siderfin, again, I hope I've pronounced that correctly. Thank you. And Steve Daly, any supplementaries from you? I think you know the form, Mr. Daly, so do come forward. And you have 3 minutes, of course, as you know.
Councillors, executive members and Mr. Mayor. The Minister has spoken. SIL was never intended to be implemented in this way. He's committed to change legislation to stop councils like Waverley continuing to do this in future. He said that whilst you have a duty to collect SIL, it should be reasonable and proportionate. He has been very clear that you have discretion to make ex gratia payments where a household developer would have been entitled to exemption, but as a result of an administrative error, failed to claim it in accordance with the required procedure, and now faces hardship as a consequence.
I do need a question.
It's coming very quickly. Whatever objections and excuses you've raised, we have counted. So this is the question. Ladies and gentlemen, what would be your legacy? A council that turned a blind eye to officers who created immense hardship and distress? Or will you now treat residents with kindness and respect? And Councillor Liz Townsend, will you now extend and amend the homeowner discretionary review to include homeowner error, which Minister says you have the power to do so? Councillors, I ask you tonight to put party politics aside and vote with conscience. Call out this bad behaviour now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Townsend, you have a response, I dare say.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I would say that we will be considering obviously the minister's letter, and I think we've made that clear. And we will be obviously covering this topic later in the motion as well. And I have nothing more to say at this time. And I think that it is fair to say that we very much welcome the letter from the minister. We've been lobbying ourselves for this, and we very much welcome the consultation on the changes to come forward, which we don't know what they are at this stage. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And you can give a copy of your reply to the questioner, I'm sure. Thank you very much. Good. That's the questions by the public. Questions by members. We've not received any, so skip over that. And we go on to then item 7, the amended redundancy policy. Councillor Follows, I believe you're moving this.
Yes, happy to move this, and I believe I have a seconder.
Thank you, Mr. Councillor Merriweather. And
Is he reserving his right?
yeah. Will you be reserving your right? Okay. All yours, Councillor Follows, for 6 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. I certainly will not need 6 minutes. So the report before you seeks approval to amend the council's redundancy policy in relation to pension strain costs for employees aged 55 or over who are members of the local government pension scheme. This approach can significantly reduce the redundancy compensation received by affected employees, and in some cases may result in employees receiving only the statutory minimum payment. Now, the proposed change removes the current provision, allowing pension strains costs to be deducted from the redundancy payments, and instead confirms that the council will meet those costs directly. This aligns the council's approach with common practice, not just in Guildford, but amongst, I believe, all of the councils in Surrey, where pension strain costs are treated as an employer liability associated with organisational restructuring. As you can imagine, this is very relevant at the moment. This improves fairness and transparency for affected employees, and should the council approve this evening, council employees will be notified of the change and the redundancy policy updated accordingly. Obviously, this is one of those ones where financially it's slightly difficult to calculate because you are talking about individual staff, many of which may not be going through this process, and of course the actual amounts for an individual member of staff vary for many, many different reasons, which I'm sure I don't need to bore you with. So it is a little bit more vague on the finances than I think any of us would like, but I think there's a very good reason for that too. With that, Mr Mayor, I'm very happy to move the recommendations to council.
Good. Thank you very much. I throw it open then. Yeah, Councillor Hyman.
Thank you. Just let you know that that mic doesn't work, which is why I've moved. So Councillor Lawson won't be able to speak unless he moves now. But thanks for getting the water, officers. Okay, if we move to page 12, if you would, of your report, it's got 2 boxes up there about 2 examples of financial impacts. One for 38k annual income, one for 65k annual income. And you look at the additional cost in the bottom line of the second box, additional cost under proposed policy. I think that's what we need to, to cut to the chase. For 38 grand, the additional cost under this is less than £2.5 That for 65 £1,000 income, that increases to 18 grand. So this is exponential by the looks of it. We don't have any examples. I mean, we've got members of staff and quite a lot who are on incomes of over 80,000, over 100,000, even up to £170,000. There are 10 councils which are going through this. We should be looking at what is the overall cost, because LGR is about saving money, obviously, and we as councillors, obviously not the staff, not the council itself, but we as councillors are here to represent residents and the council taxpayers. That's our job. And we've got this document put in front of us by staff who obviously have a vested interest. That's natural, it's not a criticism, it's just the way it is. It looks to me, if that's 17,900, these look like small figures, but if you have an exponential increase in the pension strain costs, and we are not being told about it, and it could end up being millions for all we know, because that's 17,900 for a 65 grand. If that increases exponentially, look, it's increased from £2.5 just to 18 grand for just doubling the salary level. That's way past exponential. So, but it's That's something we need to know what this could cost. So the question then becomes, if we're protecting the taxpayer or trying to, which is our job, should we be doing the same as the other Surrey councils that have decided to pay the costs, the pension train costs themselves, or should we do what we've always done and what we've always thought was fair and wonderful, which is our current policy? So should we get all the others in Surrey to do what we've always done very successfully and very fairly, or should we do what we're now being told is fair, which is to put the additional cost onto the taxpayer? Onto the council taxpayer. So which way round should it be? Well, we're not told, are we being told to do what Woking do? I mean, well, how wonderful. Shall we all do that then? We'll just follow whatever Woking do. They don't seem to care much about money for the residents. I don't have enough information. I think our staff should be treated fairly, but this doesn't tell me what fairly is, because we think we treat them fairly as it is, and we're told we do. Someone has to pay for this. So unless we know whether we should align and whether Surrey are going to West Surrey are going to be making this decision in future rather than us. I mean, do West Surrey have to decide? Is this going to cost 10 million, which is simply out of the question? You ask a reasonable member of the public, should we take on that extra cost from next April? Are we just going to sit here and blindly agree to dump an extra multi-million-pound cost on taxpayers without having any real information in front of us? We don't know what the costs are likely to be, and we have to obviously to ensure that we act lawfully. We already do, we're told. Therefore, this is acting more generously than lawfully. We don't have to do that. I'll be voting against this for lack of information, not because I don't think our staff don't deserve more money or whatever, but things are very tight for everybody. I've no information to go on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well timed. Did I see any other hands? Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a different view to Councillor Hyman in that personally, I think it's a sensible approach. I think in the concept of LGR and the worrying times for our employees who may be going through this, that any recommendations which would fix an anomaly seems a sensible thing. And I think it would send a message to our employees at this time, would be reassuring that we are, as an organisation, on their side and looking for them. I did ask Claire from Guildford Borough Council, and she very kindly came back to me I asked the question, what did she think the costs would be? Would it be, as Councillor Hyman indicated, and obviously we don't know, would it be tens of thousands or would it be millions? Now, that she couldn't answer, of course. And as Councillor, the leader, has said, she couldn't answer it because she doesn't know. Now, what she did say was that there's no indication that there will be redundancies at Waverley. So she can't make figures up thinking this is going to be the case. So, yes, I don't like having an opposite argument to my esteemed colleague, but I think it's on most things, this is a fair thing to be doing. And I think in the context of where we are with LGR, with all the uncertainty, I think if there are other things which we find, which are not on the side of employees, and I think we should do everything we can to reassure these employees of Waverley that we're on their side. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Davidson.
Thank you, Chair. I'm in a slightly confused state, not abnormal, but which causes me to think about a couple of questions, which I would appreciate both our Chief Executive and our leader as our LGR representative to clear. My understanding is that redundancy is paid by the employer. So the questions I've got are twofold. One, are we as Waverley, as a borough, planning redundancies? And secondly, when do our employees transfer contractually to Surrey or West Surrey. Because it's then the burden of redundancy is on their part and not on our part, and that would then be shared amongst all the ratepayers in the county or the semi-county. So a little bit of clarification as to what the implications of this are and who it actually affects. I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Davidson. Don't see any more hands, so it's over to Councillor Merriweather, and then Councillor Follows to sum up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wasn't expecting to have to say very much, but I would respectfully correct Councillor Hyman's understanding of the table on page 12. Those are two different examples, one for an employee on £70,000 and another for an employee on £95,000. And the 17,900 that he refers to, there's no relationship to the 2,300 in the column. For example, one, the 17,900 is the additional cost for the employee who's earning £95,000.
I'm sorry, that's not the pension strain costs, it says. You're wrong. Look, you go to the top of the previous page.
Sorry, Councillor Hyman, you
Point
can't
of
intervene.
personal explanation, I was correct.
No, you've had your 4 minutes. I'm afraid we've moved on from that.
I will come back with a point of personal explanation. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would ask for my time back, but I don't think I'm going to need it. So there's no exponential increase for the employee on 95,000. It is 90,000. It is 90%, but it's not 1, 2, or 3 or 4 times what they'd be entitled to as the minimum. And I would like to make the point we've discussed elsewhere, and I'm sure we'll be discussing again, that we are in a situation where we struggle to hire employees for love or money. The pension is, alongside flexible working, perhaps the only fringe benefit, if you like, that we have at our disposal to attract people who are otherwise tempted by the private sector. We don't offer company cars, we don't offer private health, we don't offer all of these things that the private sector takes for granted. So it is very important where we can that we at least do the reasonable thing here. I don't think that statutory minimum redundancy payment is fair or reasonable, particularly in the current climate. It certainly doesn't do us or our residents any favours. So I really do support this. I do think it's a no-brainer, and I also just want to finally register the point that our staff, by default, will be transferring to the new authority under the 2P regulations, which protect their employment. That's what PE in 2P means. I really would like to discourage anybody from raising any concerns that we have any automatic redundancies in mind. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a point of personal explanation, if I may. As my right under the Constitution, please consult the officers.
Okay, but it's got to be personal explanation.
It is a point of personal
I'm not
explanation,
accepting a debate.
and that is, the statement that I made was correct. If you look at page 11, you will see that example 1 is 38 grand in annual income, and example 2 is 65 grand. And what Councillor Merriweather said is he quoted the pension strain cost at the top of the next page, 70 and 95,000 pounds, as the incomes. He is incorrect, and I'd like an apology. He has tried to correct me on something I'm right about. I would like an apology now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hyman. Over to you, Councillor Merriweather. Thank you. Your point has been fully aired, Councillor Hyman, and Councillor Follows to sum up, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So Claire G is a joint employee of both Waverley and Guildford, and gave the same advice to me. And I think the underlying point is we don't exactly know how many, but I think the rough numbers we've got are less than 15. I think it was specifically 11 where this might count. And so the possibility of it being, to use Councillor Hyman's words, an exponential cost increase. Firstly, we know it's a small number of employees where this will be relevant. And secondly, as we only have a finite number of employees, it's unlikely to be an exponential cost statistically. Regarding the points that Councillor Davidson made regarding West Surrey, please forgive my slight caution here because I have to on occasion make sure I don't fetter myself now in the other place. So I'll make sure I've hopefully have done this properly. So all employees move on vesting day under 2P, but where they move to is the bit that's material for the discussion here. So you can imagine it's kind of all wooden dollars if they currently work for a council in the West, because they will move to the West. Where it becomes a more complicated negotiation, subject to a discussion with East Surrey on how some services are run, is for Surrey County Council employees, because they could theoretically work in East or West, and the distribution is to be determined. So it's very clear if they work for any of the boroughs and districts in the West. Not clear if they work for the county, not yet. It will be by vesting day because it must be clear by vesting day. In terms of the redundancy strain, that is, I believe, legally picked up by the current employers. But again, because if it's all in the West, that's all kind of wooden dollars, as I said. So again, the who picks it up question is really only a problem, as far as I can see, for Surrey County Council employees, where we need to figure out where they land, and that no one council is paying too much of, neither West or East is paying an inappropriate level of the strain going forward. In terms of LGR, obviously, I'm sure it's about saving money, but until somebody can show me where it does, I will keep that in the back of my mind somewhere. But in terms of protecting the taxpayer as well, that's a phrase I hope will come up again in a later debate. Because it is also relevant to that debate as well. I'll just conclude with the comment that Mark made. This is about making sure our staff are treated fairly. They're treated fairly, not just here, but also equal terms as far as we can get it to their compatriots in the other boroughs and districts of Surrey, which I think is a very relevant thing, not only for a challenging recruitment market for us at Waverley still for the next 9 months, but also making sure that Waverley and Guildford staff set off on the right foot in the new West Surrey and are not in any way disproportionately set against by any policy that we have here. There'll be a number of areas where HR and myself and Victoria as the portfolio holders will be looking to try and make sure that we have as even a playing field as possible between the districts and boroughs of the West. And I can assure you that is a discussion I'm having with our opposite numbers in those councils to ensure where, as there are examples where we are more fair than some parts of West Surrey, that they change their policies accordingly as well. It's not a one-sided thing. This is just happens to be one of the first. With that, Mr. Mayor, I hope that's covered all the points that have been raised. And again, happy to move the recommendations.
Good. Thank you very much. We'll now go to the vote. Are you all set up for that? You all know what to do by now, I'm sure.
It's one of those, if you're willing to do by show of hands, that.
It's not.
By show of hands.
Okay, I understand the buttons are going slow, so we'll do it by a show of hand. All those in favour of the 3 parts of the motion, please raise their hand.
14, 15. Two, 3. 13, I think. Let's do
Okay.
the against.
Yeah.
as
All
well.
those against, please.
1, 2. And any abstentions?
Any abstentions?
Right, so that's 38 for.
Could you put your mic on?
So that's 38 votes for, 2 against and 2 abstentions.
Good. So that motion is carried. Thank you very much. Item 8. Now, I'm not going to ask for any questions of clarity, because it is surely crystal clear. But I will move from the chair to allow Councillor. I beg your pardon. Yep.
Mr. Mayor, I beg to ask that there is a question of clarity, because I believe there may well be a mistake in the document. Either that or I don't understand, and I would like to ask that question.
That's a question of clarity.
It is.
Okay, please do that.
Members will see in the report at section 2.1 that the date of the
Microphone.
sorry, it's item 8, section 2.1, which is on page 18. But it mentioned a date of the 3rd of March 2026. When we come to the recommendation in options 10.1 and 10.2 on page 20, it mentions a date of the 23rd of October 2025 in both of them. I don't understand where that date comes from, and I believe it should be the 3rd of March. I need clarification as to what that is. Thank you.
Thank you. Can anyone help?
It should say 3rd of March in both places.
I'm advised, you're absolutely right, Councillor Reid. It should have say 3rd of March in both cases. So thank you very much for pointing that out. If you could amend all your papers. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no,
Councillor Austin. Yeah.
thank you. It's actually something I did spot, and I did mean, and I completely forgot to mention to you, Alex. I'm so sorry. Yeah, error. Thanks.
Thank you very much. 2 eagle-eyed councillors. Thank you very much. Right, that's clarity. So I will move from the chair, and I have a seconder. I don't think it needs any debate. Of course, I'll invite councillors to do that. I would just like to say before we vote by show of hands, I think we should express our sympathies to Councillor Reline for his ill health, and on your behalf, I will contact him to do just that. Is the motion agreed, please? Agreed. Thank you very much. Right, I think we've got the interesting one now. Right, item 9 then, motion submitted by Councillor Austin. Again, I will, yes, do you have a seconder, please, Councillor Austin? And Councillor Murray. Do you want to speak now or reserve your right? You'll speak after the proposer. I need to ask for questions of clarity before we go to the debate. Yes, thanks, Councillor.
Can officers clarify, please, for me, where the council is agreeing or may want to agree this evening to what's in front? It is suggesting that the Overview and Scrutiny Committee sets up a task and finish group or whatever function in whatever way it wants to exercise its functions. Is that binding on the Overview and Scrutiny Committee in any way? Because obviously it is for the Overview and Scrutiny Committee to determine what it wants itself. And I noticed that the motion tells us, is asking us, can we have a little bit of clarification? Because if officers are going to turn around at a later stage and say, oh, council decided this, so Overview and Scrutiny has to do it this way or that way or whatever, then that would not be a satisfactory outcome.
Thanks very much, Councillor Hyman.
Thank you.
I think that's a clear point. Yeah, we'll get some advice here.
Thank you, Councillor Hyman. The Overview and Scrutiny Committee could decline to set up that task and finish group.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. The Overview and Scrutiny Committee could decline to set up that task and finish group itself.
Good. Thank you for clarifying that. So, Councillor Austin, I think you have six minutes.
There we are. Right. Thank you. On the, where are we? Following a monumental campaign by the Still Injustice Group, many of whom are in this room tonight, Conservative councillors, our local MPs, last week, the Housing Minister confirmed 3 important points. First, the government intends to amend the SIL regulations so that homeowners do not face disproportionate charges in future. Second, while councils must continue to collect SIL, they should consider what is reasonable and proportionate when dealing with cases. Thirdly, Councils do have discretion to make ex gratia payments in exceptional circumstances where a homeowner would have qualified for an exemption but lost it because of an administrative error and now faces significant hardship. It's important to note the Minister referred to administrative error, not simply council error, leaving scope and space for local authorities to exercise discretion where appropriate. Nearly 18 months ago, this council supported a Conservative motion to review householder SIL cases, drawing on the approach successfully adopted by West Berkshire Council. Upon adoption of Waverley's review scheme 12 months ago, residents and members were told there would be updates after 3 months and again after 9 months. Residents were told legal assessments would be published. Yet, we're here today. No publicly published progress reports, no publicly published legal assessments, no refunds arising from the discretionary review, no withdrawal of SIL liability notices, not a single case publicly confirmed as resolved. In my view, this is deeply disappointing, but it gets worse. In January this year, following both a public petition and our earlier motion to council, members recommended the Executive Commission, without delay, an independent investigation into the council's historic handling of householder SIL cases. More than 5 months later, there is still no independent investigation, no timetable, no published terms of reference, no indication to the public of when this work will begin. Meanwhile, behind every one of these cases is a family who has lived with enormous financial pressure, uncertainty, anxiety, and yes, genuine hardship, sometimes for years. Yes, flaws in the national regulations have contributed to these outcomes and in some cases caused them. But the accounts shared with me, my council group, and with our local MPs also raise serious questions about whether Waverley consistently exercised the reasonableness and the proportionality the Minister has now confirmed councils are able to apply. Those residents hit and those who narrowly avoided the same fate deserve transparency. They deserve confidence that lessons will be learned so that this never happens again. This motion is not about rewriting history or apportioning blame. It's about accountability. If progress has been made, publish it. If work is underway, you need to tell the public, because to date there has been silence. It is difficult to avoid the conclusion that this work has not been treated as a priority by the executive. This is an issue of political will, or lack of it, from the Liberal Democrat executive, something we have always suspected. Once again, members received a briefing note, erroneously marked confidential, at 5:17 last night. The obvious question is this: had this motion not been brought forward, when would members and the public have received any update at all? Today, we are simply asking the council to do what it has previously committed to do: publish a progress report on the discretionary review publicly, provide an update on the independent investigation, report publicly on progress with historic SIL cases. Further, to consider whether overview and scrutiny should establish a task and finish group. It is indeed for the chair of ONS to decide upon what scrutiny mechanism the chair may consider appropriate. That may indeed include set committee mode or any other scrutiny process. Finally, in our council's group, the executive must now reconsider the scope of the review in light of the government's proposed legislative reforms and the recent ministerial statement. These are reasonable and proportionate requests. Most importantly, they demonstrate to residents that this council takes seriously its own decisions and the experiences of those affected. I commend this motion to council. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Councillor Austin. Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As Councillor Austin has stated, last week the government minister issued some welcome additional guidance to councils, confirming that they have discretion in the enforcement of SIL, and that ex gratia payments from council's general funds can be made to householders who have been caught out in administrative errors. And it does not say by whom. It also appears that this has always been the case. Now, since the introduction of SIL, Waverley had a very rigid enforcement policy which had no discretion. But this was subsequently updated in 2025, and we are dealing with cases from prior to this change. So how has this announcement affected the Waverley residents who have fallen foul on SIL penalties? Well, we are told there will be a consultation on changing the law. But what does that mean in practice? Another 18 months, 2 years perhaps? Residents who's already been waited so long deserve something more tangible. Some of these residents affected are frail and in ill health. Some are having to sell their family homes. So here we are, 18 months after this council agreed a motion to consider a discretionary fund, and 6 months after the public petition debate calling for an internal investigation into the SIL enforcement regime, we are once again asking for progress. It seems as if the executive are hoping this matter will be swallowed up in the transfer to the new unitary. Bless you. I appreciate yesterday's information note from the head of planning, and that decisions will be published in July. That it has taken 12 months to get us to this position is seriously disappointing. I would have thought that each case decision could have been announced when completed and not wait until all 6 of them were. And what we are talking about is not vast sums. And remember, this money we would never have had the paperwork been submitted correctly. The householders would have been exempt from paying it. So members, I urge this council to be bold and decide to right the wrongs. We can be sympathetic and can look at these cases as true hardship cases and use our discretion to fix this instead of being seen as lacking in compassion and humanity. The other purpose of this motion, however, is to establish an ONS task and finish group or perhaps a select committee to examine how we have ended up in this position and, more importantly, what we can do to resolve the current impasse. The head of planning believes that an independent investigation, which was agreed by council, could not be feasible as no professional body would take it on. Perhaps this could be a compromise. And as chair of the ONS committee, I can confirm that we have already agreed to include this matter in our forward work programme. And the head of planning has said that a report will be sent to us in September. We stand ready to act as a critical friend. We want to hear from residents affected, members, experts, officers, and the executive, where we can examine the entire issue openly and work towards a positive outcome for everyone concerned. Members, I hope you will place your trust in your ONS committee and support it in undertaking a comprehensive review of householder SIL process on behalf of this council. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'm pleased to second this motion.
Thank you very much, Councillor Murray. I've got 3 speakers have so far indicated, 4 speakers. Councillor Gale, Councillor Follows, Councillor Liz Townsend, Councillor Hyman. So, Councillor Gale.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. May I begin by thanking Councillor Austin for bringing this motion and Councillor Murray for his thoughtful contribution, highlighting what this motion is really all about, the residents who have lived with the consequences of the council's handling of the householder SIL regime. This debate is not about reopening old political arguments or apportioning blame. It is about recognising that serious questions remain unanswered and that residents deserve clarity, accountability and, where appropriate, redress. We've heard the government has now confirmed councils do have discretion in the enforcement of SIL and can make discretionary payments from general funds. That confirmation makes it even more important that we understand how this council interpreted its powers and whether opportunities were missed to exercise compassion in genuinely exceptional cases. Councillor Murray rightly reminded us that this council has already debated these issues on more than one occasion. Residents have petitioned us. Previous motions have been agreed, yet many affected families are still waiting for meaningful progress. They have shown remarkable patience, and I believe we owe them more than further delays. This motion is deliberately constructive. It does not seek to prejudge the outcome of any review, nor does it seek to criticise officers carrying out their duties. Instead, it asks for transparency about the work already undertaken and proposes a task and finish group to examine the wider lessons that must be learned. If we are serious about restoring public confidence, we must be willing to examine not only what happened, but why it happened. We should be prepared to listen to residents, to experts, and to those involved in administering the process, so that any recommendations are evidence-based and focused on improvement. Importantly, this is not just about the past. Local government is changing, and responsibilities will soon transfer to a new unitary authority. That makes it even more important that we leave behind a clear understanding of what worked, what did not, and how future councils can avoid placing residents in similar circumstances. No council gets everything right all of the time. What defines a good council is its willingness to learn, to be transparent, and where necessary to acknowledge that processes can be improved. Supporting this motion is not an admission of failure. It is a commitment to good governance. It is a commitment to scrutiny, openness, and continuous improvement. Most importantly, it is a commitment to the residents who have asked us to listen to them. I therefore ask members from all sides of this chamber to support this motion tonight. In doing so, we can demonstrate that this council is prepared to work together constructively, to learn from experience and ensure that fairness, proportionality and compassion remain at the heart of our decision making. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gale. In addition to the councillor I've already mentioned, I've got speaking Councillor Clark, Councillor Mayweather, Councillor Martin and Councillor Coburn, just so you know, and Councillor Ward, but Councillor follows.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, members. I will start with saying I do think it is regrettable we are in a position where reports haven't been issued. I've had this discussion and so has Councillor Townsend, and that is something that we will redress regardless of the outcome of the motion tonight. I think the non-political response would have been, and not just tonight, for those who have been or are currently the chair of the ONS committee to have exercised their proper duties with the select committee powers that they have to just do this. And I think it does beg the question of why you haven't, and not just now, but the last two times as well. And I do think that I am once again being lectured on not being political by allegedly not political people in a political way. One of the problems that the way that you've gone about this, and I don't unfortunately just mean the members in this room, is that when it comes to getting things like independent reviewers from the Planning Association and various other places, you have resolutely poisoned the well for trying to find individuals to come and actually conduct these reviews. It has been incredibly challenging to find people who will pin their reputations on something that they know full well will be dragged through the politics and the press before they've even put pen to paper. That is something I urged you to consider the last two times that we had this discussion. And once again, we are struggling to find people to undertake these roles because they look at what it might do to their careers if they do. I also just need to feel I need to say a couple of other things as well. A letter from the minister isn't a legal change. He's very clear about that. He's very clear about what the limitations are. There's only so many things that we can do as a result of a letter from a minister. And I think actually, and it has been, I think, a little inappropriately described by people outside of this room, I think actually the letter validates many of the things that we've done and highlights where we've had discretion and where we don't. And I do want to just talk about ex gratia payments. So on the occasions where a member of the public has paid a SIL liability, of course, that's gone into the SIL pot. An ex gratia payment would need to be paid from the general fund, is my understanding. It can't just be waved through as an act of council or an individual member or the executive or an officer. It still needs to come with significant legal and other justifications, as well as best value duties. It's another reason why I mentioned where the best value duty now sits as of today, because it isn't Waverley, of course, is because all the things that we need to justify this for the discretionary review, and that's, of course, remember with Mr. Daly, this was actually all done outside of a discretionary review, proving the point that I made, that all of the superstructure that you were trying to build into this process has been fundamentally unnecessary. But it does mean, though, to do an ex gratia payment, we would still need to have significant and proper justification to do so, which means there would still need to be a process, which means we would still need to go through these things. I think the other thing I really do have to say as well, that having this only come up 5 times in my division during the election, an election where some people did try to make it all about this issue, is that I do have some issues still with the general fund refunding an individual who has made an error. Now, if this was a general council taxpayer and they'd made an error, would you all be here telling me that we should be refunding them or letting them off paying because they've made an error for every council taxpayer? I mean, ultimately here.
Excuse me, Corporate. I really must ask members of the public to be quiet, please.
I appreciate what I'm about to say isn't hugely popular, but at the end of in this room anyway, but ultimately, if you're in a position where you are to incur a civil liability as a homeowner, you have either not employed advice or you have employed improper advice. Or the third option.
I'm sorry, I have to repeat myself. You must be quiet and so the debate may proceed. I appreciate there are strong feelings, but I do ask you to behave yourself. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, could I indulge you to have perhaps 25 seconds back that so I'm able to finish? Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The third option, of course, is where council has made an error. And that is, of course, the easiest way for us to refund you and to redress it, which is what we have tried to do. And I appreciate we need to be better at getting that process dealt with and in public. But I do not believe, hand on heart, I can tell an ordinary member of the public that it is acceptable to do an ex gratia payment from the general fund when you still have the opportunity to take legal action against improper advice that has got you in this position. Now, I do think the law needs to be changed to make this less complicated and less impractical. And this council and I and the portfolio holder have said multiple times to the government, which I do believe has also contributed to the letter that you have seen from the minister. Letter, of course, I remind you, is still not law. I do not think it acceptable to just randomly authorise ex gratia payments from the general fund. And I do ask those who are in this position to be clear that they have exhausted their options in suing the professional advice that has led you to this point. Now, the reviews will obviously carry on as they are, and I'm sure I'm going to get lambasted for saying all the things that I have just said in this chamber. No doubt about that. But we have a duty to public money and public good for all residents and to make sure that we follow the law correctly in our application of that duty. Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Thank you very much. And we've now got Councillor Liz Townsend.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have genuine sympathy for any householder who's found themselves facing a...
This is the last warning. If I get any more, then I'll get the gallery cleared and we will continue the debate without members of the public being present. Not something anybody here wants, but I'm afraid you'll leave us no alternative. Kindly be quiet. Thank you.
I have genuine sympathy for any householder who has found themselves facing a significant community infrastructure levy charge because of the complexity of these regulations. No one wants to see residents in that position, and the government has now acknowledged that in some cases, the regulations have produced disproportionate outcomes. I very much welcome its decision to consult on changing them. However, this motion is misleading because it presents this issue as though it is uniquely a Waverley problem, and it is not. This is fundamentally a national legislative issue. MPs from across the political spectrum have campaigned for reform because they recognise that the regulations are overly rigid. The previous government had many years in which they could have changed them. The current government has now accepted they need to be changed. That does not mean that we should not learn lessons. We should, and we have. That's why we established the Party Working Group, one of the first things it did was examine the West Berkshire approach in detail. Members concluded that Waverley should not simply replicate that model and accepted the legal advice that the council had no discretion, no general discretion, to withdraw a lawfully issued liability notice. Instead, we agreed a revised enforcement policy, and it's not true that we didn't use discretion before. It's not true. We just made it clearer where we had discretion and where we did not. We and within the regulations, we can't make up discretion. I fully acknowledge that the discretionary review has taken longer than expected, and that is disappointing, and I'm very sorry for that. But the independent person took longer to produce the reports, and the head of planning, and she apologises very much for that, has taken longer to go through them in full. But we would also be lambasted if we didn't do a proper job, and I am convinced that we are doing a proper job. We have also, at the same time, we have only got one head of planning, and at the same time, we've had to deal with complex planning enforcement cases where we've had an awful lot of pressure and many court deadlines which simply could not be deferred, alongside the demands of local government reorganisation. That is the reality of balancing finite resources with statutory obligations. Turning to the independent review of the service, members will know from the update sheet that despite approaches being made, a suitably qualified body has not yet been secured to undertake the work that has been requested. A further report will be coming forward, and the executive will be looking at that. Finally, I'm surprised the motion asks full council to instruct ONS to establish a task and finish group. You already had that constitutional power. It does not require a resolution of full council, and both the previous chairman and the current chairman should be well aware of that. Mr. Mayor, we should publish the findings of the discretionary review, and the head of planning is committed to doing that in July, no later. A report is already scheduled to come to ONS in September, and if members want a briefing beforehand, I'm very happy to facilitate that. I do not believe this motion fairly reflects either the work that has already been undertaken by officers or the legal position in which this council has had to operate. And for those reasons, I cannot support this motion.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hyman.
Mr. Mayor, just to understand, I know that the chair of ONS can set up a scrutiny committee, he can do that. I know that he can do that. Just one second. I'm asking for your support. I can still do it. But what I would like is that your support. There's 6 members on the ONS committee. So that is what I'm asking for. I'm not asking for permission.
A personal explanation, but thank you for that. Councillor Hyman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can understand the anger, the disappointment of the residents who have been affected by this, because this seems to have gone on forever, and it seems to be an exercise in mixing metaphors, kicking the can down the road, sweeping it under the carpet, isn't it? Now, the fact is that when we adopted CIL, we weren't advised properly as members. We were told, and officers weren't advised properly by us, Three Dragons, whatever it was, that the advisors. We told householders that they would not be liable to CIL under 100 square metres. You're not liable to CIL. You don't have to worry. That was the rules, and that's been confirmed by everybody. You don't have to do anything if it's under 100 square metres. Above that, you can apply for an exemption. But house builders, the major house builders have to pay. That's about getting them to pay for the infrastructure. But homeowners doing extensions and whatever don't need to pay this. That's what we told them. They should have been able to trust us. We were the professionals advising those people. We as professionals made it clear they didn't have to pay. That's what it said in our committee papers. Nevertheless, some of them got caught, and overzealous staff in Waverley and 1 or 2 other places have made it a major problem, because it hasn't been a big problem everywhere where staff have acted sensibly and proportionately and reasonably. People got caught and they received letters from this council, from us, threatening them with having their goods seized, having their homes taken away from them, Mr. Mayor.
Sorry, Councillor Hyman. I really object to the word threatening, and that's a personal attack.
They received letters which at the bottom of those letters
Kindly be quiet,
made
Councillor Hyman.
statements.
I ask you to withdraw that word, please.
I withdraw the word threatening.
you.
They received letters, I apologise, unreservedly, etc., etc. They received letters which at the bottom made statements which said that if they did not pay up now, these demands for tens of thousands, even £100,000 or more, if you do not pay up now, and bear in mind they got caught in traps and we'd told them they didn't have to pay. We, the professionals, said they didn't have to pay because they're householders, and they got caught in traps with demands, unwittingly, with demands for all this money saying, if you don't, not threatening, of course, if you don't pay this up, then we will seize your property, we will take your property off of you, and we will, it's what it said on the bottom of the letters, I've read them, and lots of people have been sent them and seen them, it's true. And even threatening, not threatening, even mentioning that jail terms might be involved. Now, if you had received that when it was the council's fault in the first place for not making it clear that there were caveats, very simple, we're not guilty of it, we didn't know about it, but this is what happened. Those people then, now of those people, a number of them fought it because they were professionals and the council caved in very early on. They did have the discretion and they did change it and let people off. Those people haven't been in front of us ever. But we know of those people, a number of them. We've had two people now, Mr. Colvin, very happy for him. I understand that he's also been found not guilty, and he's going to get, won't have to make his payment, or we'll get it back. So two people have now found that the letters they got that said all these nasty things to them were wrong. They were unfairly treated. They've had to live with this for 1.5 years, 2 years, 4 years, some of them, 6 years, some of them actually. It's a long time they've lived with all of this and likely to lose their house, and many of them still are. Many of them are still having to do it. So let's expedite this with transparency through through ONS. Please support this motion, people, to stop this now. It's gone on long enough.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hyman. Councillor Clark. Another one.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Apologies, first of all, for not removing my jacket. But I only bought it last month, and this is its second outing. So I'll take it off perhaps later on. I think it might be useful just for me to share some reflections on why we've been facing this apparent paralysis. And I'd like to address 3 areas quickly: risk, capacity, and choice. A famous pilot with no legs once uttered the words, "Rules are for the obedience of fools and the guidance of wise men." So said Douglas Bader when he was informed that government regulations would prevent him from ever flying again. However, he went on to become an ace pilot by shooting down 20 enemy aircraft. Crucially, he did not ask for advice. Our senior officers seek advice from legal experts, and members seek advice from senior officers. But advice is an opinion offered to guide an action, or it is a suggestion in situations where a choice must be made. To me, it's the word choice that stands out. This council and its executive always have had and still have a choice. But the choice will depend to a large extent on the council's appetite for the risk. Other councils have been advised by their officers on these national regulations, but some have chosen not to follow that advice, and that the risk was worth taking to better serve their residents. None of these councils have ended up in the Tower of London for doing so. However, could this apparent paralysis be related to capacity? Both the portfolio holder and the head of planning seem to operate most of the time at full capacity. It's not for me as a member to make any further comment about a senior officer's workload or capacity, but the portfolio holder is also the deputy leader of the council, a Cranley parish councillor, a county councillor, a West Unitary shadow council, and a member of their executive. And that's only the ones I know about. But having worked with Liz on our executive for several years, I appreciate and admire her prodigious work ethic. Considering her workload, I would hope the portfolio holder would have welcomed some support. Much has been made of the recent letter from the Minister, and Councillor Townsend was quoted in last week's council press release as saying, "We look forward to responding constructively to the government's consultation and helping to develop a system that is clearer, fairer, and more proportionate for householders." However, conversely, these words could be interpreted that in the meantime, we will continue to follow a system that is not clear, acts unfairly, and is disproportionate towards householders. So I support this motion and encourage others to make the same choice. And Mr. Mayor, may I finish by saying, when it comes to getting legless, I must admit, despite frequent attempts, I am still a jaunty amateur.
Thank you. I think I understand that. Councillor Merriweather.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It may surprise some people that I recognise and share many of the frustrations behind this motion. There has been progress, but it has been slow, and in many respects because of things outside of our control. But the progress that we have made contrasts starkly with the government, which, despite its platitudes, has made no substantive changes to what we all agree to be a system which is so significantly flawed and in desperate need of urgent reform. But that reform is not in Waverley's gift, however much we would like it to be otherwise. I've studied Mr. Pennycock's letter on top of all of the other information and advice that we've collectively received and seen, including at the cross-party SIL reform group. I found nothing in that letter that contradicts this council's policies and practices, and nothing in it to say that we have any discretion when it comes to following the law. Acting unlawfully is neither fair nor reasonable. The consequences of breaking the law extend way beyond our relationship with the government, because it would also expose us to other risks, including judicial reviews by others included in our local property development community. That matters because it puts our council taxpayers' funds at risk. The question of whether the council or the household developer was mistaken matters. The last paragraph of the minister's letter is clearly significant. It confirms our own understanding that in cases of administrative error by the household developer, or even they're starting work prematurely, where the SIL liability notice can't legally be withdrawn, the burden of any discretionary compensation must fall on the general fund. And let's be clear here, the general fund is our council taxpayers. When we make a choice or take a risk, we forget at our peril that we're doing so on behalf of our thousands of council taxpayers. This is distinct from this council's policy to withdraw SIL liability notices in cases of error by the council, as it did for Mr. Daly, where Mr. Pennycock confirms that those refunds can come from the SIL pot. We do have a discretionary view, but we also have a duty of care to our taxpayers to follow a due process. I'm also concerned that the remedies this motion seeks don't address these flaws, let alone fix them. They will not actually improve the situation and may even be a distraction, especially where we may be second guessing, third guessing, fourth guessing perhaps incorrectly, whatever reforms Mr. Pennycock or his successors may be minded to actually make when they get round to it. So again, while I do actually support the sentiments, particularly behind points 1 to 3 in the proposed resolution, and as Councillor Hyman and others have highlighted, point 4 is a matter for ONS, which Councillors Austin and Murray have between them chaired. It's because we have to take this motion as a whole, and because I have very severe reservations about point 5 in particular, and the narrative that precede it, I just can't support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Merriweather. We've got 3 more speakers, so I'm proposing to leave it there, and then, of course, sum up by Councillor Austin. Councillor Martin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I would like to comment on the remarks made by the leader concerning what he would say in front of a resident or a taxpayer about repaying money from the general fund. And I would extend the same degree of interest to that which Mark Merriweather has just made in terms of a duty of care. It's very interesting to see that at the moment, and I've got these numbers from our finance officers today, we have an outstanding and unspent level of SIL sitting in our balance sheet of in excess of £31 million. Our Treasury Management Group are getting an average of 4.43% per month at the moment, 4.43% interest rate per year on that. And the interest gathered in just the month of May on that £31 million amounted to nearly £116,000 just in 1 month. So the unspent SIL is generating about £1.4 million a year of interest, which goes straight into the general fund. So I think I would have no difficulty at all in explaining to a resident that it would be perfectly reasonable to use some of that money to put right the injustices that we have seen thus far. Additionally, we talk about the general fund. Interestingly, as we saw in the ONS meeting last week, the year end at March for March 26 for the year 25-26, the general fund had an underspend of £4.6 million. That's equivalent to 36% of council tax. Much of that was transferred into reserves, so it netted out at £2.9 million, still equal to 23% of council tax. So colossal sums of money were saved last year, and it seems to me that similar colossal sums of money will be saved during the course of this year. And we made the point in the ONS meeting that it would be good for the executive to consider ways of returning much of that money to the residents. And as Mark Merriweather points out, it is indeed their money. So I could suggest many ways in which money could be reasonably returned to our residents. And one of them, I believe, would be to pay to resolve this question of the SIL difficulty that so many of our residents and householders are experiencing by taking advantage of the letter from the minister, which makes clear that discretion exists. And it does seem to me that there is an unreasonable level of discretion that Waverley is applying, that we could do much more if Waverley resolved to use the full power that the minister is saying is there. We could resolve this thing now, this year, and not wait until the 1st of April of next year for West Surrey to take it over. So I would urge members to support these recommendations to the council. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Martin. Councillor Coburn.
Thank you, Mr. Mann. I really can't believe we're here again. I've heard nothing new tonight, apart from the fact that we now have a letter that gives us more confidence to do what we should have done in the first place. I won't use words that I'm going to be told I have to withdraw, but I have had people in tears on the phone. In fact, I'm welling up now thinking about it. This is people. You know, we're not dealing here with facts, with laws, with policy. only. We're dealing here with historic wrongs. And we are here as the council of the moment to right the historic wrongs. We don't need to go over the detail. We know that errors were made. We've said that from the start. We're not trying to blame people. It's not about blaming. It's about doing the right thing. These people should not have paid a penny in Sill. And yet, because we were green, I don't know the reason. Quite frankly, it doesn't matter by the time we've got to this stage. We have just got residents in dire straits as a result of some of our errors, some of their errors. And when you're solving a dispute, there's no point in going back years. Look at the issues that we've got at the moment, see if we can put it right. The letter, whatever anybody says, tells us that we have got the ability to put in a discretionary review and to pay. We argued this, I would say years ago, that's a bit of an exaggeration, but maybe not, many months ago in this very chamber. We said by public law, we were told there's no such thing. Yes, there is. And we have always had a duty to treat our residents with fairness and to deal with them as human beings and as fairly as we as fellow human beings can do. I am sick to death of this, not the topic, because I think the residents are quite right in raising it as often as possible, but our inability to move forward. We're told there's movement. We're told we've done a lot. No, we haven't. Let's be honest. We've, as I think other people have used the phrase, kicked it into the long grass, kicked can down the road. We have deferred this every time we've had half a chance to do something about it. Well, let's do what Councillor Hyman said right at the beginning of this. Let's just get on and do it now. Councillor Martin has just told us we have got the funds. He's right. At ONS, we were surprised just how much underspend we could. And we spent some time saying we should make sure that this is used for the benefit of our residents. We're here as borough councillors. We've made mistakes. We've got a chance to put it right. And we are backed by that letter. I'm sorry, I don't care what anybody else says. The minister makes it quite clear that while we're waiting for changes to the official legislation, we have this window of opportunity to put in our own solution to this. I support this motion, but quite frankly, I just think we should get on. When I hear the words July or September, and I think, here we go again, putting it down the road. Just do it. Have the will. I've forgotten what phrase Councillor Clark used, but where there's a will, there's a way kept coming into my mind. And that's what we haven't got in this council chamber. We've never had the will to do what is perfectly possible to be done and to put it right once and for all the residents that were affected badly by whatever it was in the past. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Coburn. And now, and the last speaker then, before we sum up, is Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm really sad. We were elected to improve residents' lives. And I am lost for words that this executive has so conspicuously failed in its doing that in this regard. The portfolio holder has blamed officers, the independent person, and probably more for the delays. The leader has suggested that people who've lost their houses and are bankrupt should rush off and hire expensive lawyers. There's no feeling for people. And I'm astounded. I really am. The Pennycook letter, I thought might just have given people a bit of excuse to not lose face and just come round a little. It made 3 points in that letter, and the executive has stressed the first 2 points as backing up their right to be absolutely legal and encouraging them and supporting their position. But in the nauseous press release that came out, they completely skated over point 3. And point 3 was the whole crux of our problem. Our problem is that things have happened and they need sorting out. And he has reminded us, drawn our attention, encouraged councillors to use discretion for ex gratia payments to people who have made errors. We don't expect everyone who wants to build a porch to be a legal expert. So we're, if you like, the insurance company of last resort. And this consistent talk that we have from people on the executive about which pot it's going to come out of. Is it going to be the SIL pot or the general pot? I mean, these details should not really be top of the poll. The top of the poll should be, let's get it done. And Councillor Coburn has stolen many of my words, so you'll be glad to hear you won't hear me for too long. But we've got to do something about it. That it took this motion to flush out a statement at the last minute about what was going on is yet another point. This executive is just not responding. It's like a car that's run out of petrol on a motorway. Something has to change. And it's a view, it's an appreciation of why we joined the council, why we sit here, and that those people there deserve our help. I mean, let's look at this funding. You know, should we support people who've made errors? So here we are, we're sitting in our house, we knock over a candle, the house catches fire, we ring up the fire brigade and they say, oh, I'm terribly sorry, you made a mistake. It's not our fault. We're going to stay at home. That's what we're doing here. And I beg you, change your mind. Even if you can't support this motion, for goodness sake.
Thank you very much. I will ask, the last 3 speakers have been in support of the motion, so I ask if anybody who hasn't spoken. No. Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did make an omission in my proposer's speech, which I must apologise for, because Farnham resident and independent councillors have been instrumental in supporting the Still Injustice Group and the work that we've all been doing. And please accept my apologies for forgetting to put you in there. Councillor Gale, councillors do have discretion. We should be prepared to listen to not just the how, but also the why. Thank you for flagging that. It's important more than ever, I agree, in light of LGR, we do the right thing. Councillor Follows, it is regrettable, thank you for making that statement, that reports have not been issued. But I must take issue with the tone of your statement. We, who have called out an injustice, we are being accused of poisoning the well. SIL victims poison the well. We poison the well by standing up for residents and calling out an issue.
Point of personal explanation, Mr. Mayor.
I find that...
Thank you, Councillor Austin. There's a point of personal explanation. Yeah.
I made it clear that members who had acted in this way had helped poison the well in regards to the appointment of independent persons. I did not say members of the public had.
Yeah, I agree. That's what you said. Thank you, Councillor Austin. Please continue.
Okay, so we have poisoned the well, apparently. Well, there we go. I find that statement very concerning indeed. To suggest, that statement did offend everybody in the room, but it's plain wrong. Even the Housing Minister does not agree with that statement and recognises the issue. But let's talk about the hypothetical circumstance where a self-built house and halfway through, the walls fall down in a storm. Because of this, the person has to amend their planning application and they automatically, the application is deemed respective, so SIL exemptions lost and they are made to charge, they're charged hundreds of thousands of pounds. Explain to me how that is the individual's fault. That is them being caught in a horrible trap of terrible circumstance, poor law and lack of discretion. It is not their fault. Councillor Townsend, this is a national issue, yes, but there have only been 2 councils where we've seen clusters of cases and we must ask ourselves why. Why are the executive not asking themselves these questions? West Berkshire fixed it. Why haven't we? Instead, we've had dither, delay, every excuse possible, winding down the clock to the end of our council with various deferrals and motions, not ever dealing with the actual issue. Charging rates are 5 times higher in Waverley than West Berkshire. We can't even keep our residents updated. I found myself chasing emails on behalf of residents time and time again. This council does not instruct ONS, I agree. It called on the executive to consider. Councillor Townsend, the wording's right there. As chair of ONS, in retrospect, perhaps I should have called a select committee 6 months ago, but I believed that a voted council of motion of council meant it would be executed. Was I naive? Sadly, my faith in the will of council being enacted has, on this and other issues, fallen, and it's shaken my faith in democracy, I have to say. Ms Councillor Martin makes the point on ex gratia payments. I don't need to restate that. I accept that there are capacity issues, but this simply comes down to political will, and we do not have it with this Liberal Democrat executive. I am one of the only people who was in the room for the discussions with the Housing Minister. I'm grateful he understood the issue and he has given the space for our council to act. Please now do so. I will not be leaving this here, and if we don't fix it, I will take this to the Shadow West Surrey Council too. Councillor Ward, Councillor Coburn and many of the other senior councillors in the room, I respect you and I thank you. We must do the right thing. We must treat our residents well. We must do the right thing. Let us now do the right thing. Please vote for this motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Austin. Right.
Please, can I have a recorded vote? Thank you.
Yeah, okay. You're okay for that? Yeah. Right. Over to our officers.
So Councillor Austin.
4.
Councillor Barker Lomax.
4.
Councillor Beeman.
4.
Councillor Busby.
Against.
Councillor Cavalieri.
4.
Councillor Clark.
4.
Councillor Coburn. 4. Councillor Crowe.
Against.
Councillor Davidson.
4.
Councillor Denis.
4.
Councillor Juice.
Against.
Councillor Earwaker.
4.
Councillor Fairclough.
Against.
Councillor Follows.
Against.
Councillor Gale. 4. Councillor Goodridge.
4.
Councillor Hess.
Absolutely 4.
Councillor Higgins.
4.
Councillor Hyman.
4.
Councillor Keane.
Against.
Councillor Keel.
Against.
Councillor Lawton. Councillor Long.
Against.
Councillor MacLeod.
4.
Councillor Martin.
4.
Councillor Merriweather. Councillor Mirrlees.
Against.
Councillor Monroe.
4.
Councillor Murray.
4.
Councillor Nicholson. Councillor Ken Reid.
Against.
Councillor Ruth Reid.
Against.
Councillor Rivers. Paul Rivers.
Against.
Councillor Penny Rivers.
Against.
Councillor Spence.
Against.
Councillor Steiger. Councillor Sullivan.
4.
Councillor Liz Townsend.
Against.
Councillor Philip Townsend. Councillor Ward.
4.
Councillor Weldon.
Against.
Councillor White.
4.
God, it's not a casting vote.
So it's 22-4 and 20 against.
Okay, thank you. So the result of the vote is 22 votes in favour of the motion and 20 votes against the motion. So that motion is carried.
Thank you.
We will now take a break of 10 minutes and then go on to the last item. Thank you very much. We got one more item, Cranley Leisure Centre, motion submitted by councillor Goodridge. Councillor Goodridge, do you have a seconder?
I have a seconder in councillor Jane Austen. There are two matters which I would ask for clarification before I formally move the motion, please. One is that the information note that was sent to us at 17:17 last night did have confidentiality on it. And I have asked officers this afternoon to confirm that it's open and none of it is confidential. I understand from the chief executive that he informed a member of my party that it wasn't, but I would like formal confirmation before I get into trouble with a monitoring officer that this is totally open.
Thank you. Before I go to the chief executive, councillor Foley,
It's another question of clarity, actually, so I'll wait.
Oh, well, we'll just go. Are you okay to give that assurance? You've got that assurance, councillor Goodridge. Yeah.
Thank you. Lets me off the hook of going to jail by.
No, he's got 2 points.
So the second point is that now that I have the document and I'm aware that the pre-construction services agreement has not been signed, it's necessary for me to make an amendment or to amend my motion with the consent of the seconder, which I have got. And the amendment which I have notified officers about is a simple change. When you look at the motion, there are resolutions 1 to 6. I accept that number 1 cannot be complied with within a month. And therefore I have putting a first resolution in that the council resolves to call on Waverley to publish within 7 days of the signing of the pre-construction agreement with Wilmot Dixon, the number 1, which is an updated project timetable, including key milestones and anticipated opening date. For 2 to 6, they can be exactly as printed.
Good.
And they would be within a month. And number 7, as printed, going to O and S. And therefore, I'm making that amendment because of the practical problem of the executive giving me information on milestones when they haven't signed the agreement.
Thank you very much. I think that's clear enough. Councillor Follows on a
Actually, thank you, Mr. Mayor. On a related point, I contacted the proposer of the motion, noting the timeframes and highlighted a number of issues. I don't believe the motion can be valid because I don't believe those other clauses can be delivered in 1 month either. Even the second that the contract is signed does not mean that the company in question have magically and immediately completed all of the work. I can't support this motion and would argue that it's invalid at present because it is undeliverable even by the terms of the contract proposed with the provider.
Thank you. Take advice, but this is a matter of full debate, I think, and opinion. Thank you very much, Councillor Follow, taking advice, appreciating your points, but they are matters, in my view, of debate and opinion, strong opinion, and so it's proper that the debate starts. Thank you. But you'll have your say, no doubt, during the. Sorry, there needs to be some procedure. We need to.
I'm happy to reserve. I'm happy to reserve my right as seconder.
And you support the amendments.
I do. I
Good.
do.
All right.
Thank you.
Oh, and we've all got to agree that. Not that you agree with it, but you agree that's what we'll debate. All right. Phew. On we go.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for getting me through the hoops. I'd hoped that this motion would not have been necessary, but at least the motion has had the desired effect of producing some information to help the people of Cranley to know what is going on. I represent villages which where residents use Cranley and the leisure centre, and I have been getting lots of questions which I haven't been able to answer. And I understand from third parties that the portfolio holder has also been asked and not had the information. I don't propose to go through the background to the motion with the concerns, because they're all printed and you can read them perfectly well. We were last before the council in March 26, when we were asked to approve an increased budget for this important project. And we were told that it was vitally important that we don't rock the boat to change any specifications, because that would cause delay. Delay would cost money, and therefore, please get on with it, because we wish to start this project in the summer of 2026, which I took to be June or July. Having had the temperatures we've had, that certainly seemed to me to be the summer. But we accept the specification. We accept that the cost of the leisure centre because of the specification is high, but that is in the past. For the future, Cranley need and want a new leisure centre as soon as possible. And I hope we're all on the same page when we come to wanting urgent progress. What I find disquieting is that the bad information that this will not start until 2027 and not be finished until autumn 2028 has been kept secret until this motion was produced. And even now, we have inconsistencies. The portfolio holder, Councillor Liz Townsend, on the BBC today, on the radio, said that the reason why it's not going to start till 2027 is because we don't want disruption to the retailers prior to Christmas. That's not what the information note says. It says a different reason, which is basically the paperwork is not yet in order for this to happen. And we now have two versions of when it's going to start. One is that it will start after Christmas, and another one that says it will start early in the new year. Now, I don't know what that means, but we will find out, no doubt. And Councillor Townsend was saying on the radio that she hoped it would be completed by autumn 2028, while the note says it should be. Now, you look at the motion, there's clearly been delays. There's no reason why we can't be told within a month a summary of the reasons for the delay. What is it? When were the delays known? The skeptic in me, or the cynic in me, says that probably prior to the election it was known, but now the election is over, we get told the bad news. So there's absolutely no reason why number two cannot be answered now. Also, confirmation of whether the project remains within approved budget. We are told on the note that the approved budget is okay. So I'd like that in writing from the portfolio holder that that is the case. But it does surprise me in view of what was being said at the last council meeting when we were told any delay by my party in delaying the leisure centre would cause extra money. And on the parking, we've got no information, and that's what the Chamber of Commerce are anxious to receive, and the residents are anxious to receive. After all, we've agreed a budget for the parking. Surely the executive know where it's going to be and can give details. And so there's absolutely no reason why the information asked for in this motion, apart from the key milestones in number 1, why we can't have the information for the rest. I therefore commend my motion.
Thank you very much, Councillor Goodridge. You did want to reserve, didn't you, Councillor? Fine. Councillor Follows.
Thank you. I'll keep this relatively short. It's interesting, isn't it? I mean, the last time we had this, it was the same people proposing this motion wanting to fundamentally redesign it from the ground up, which I think would have caused quite a lot more delay. Yes, there's been some delays in getting information out, but I was at ONS, when was it, earlier in the week, and I'm pretty sure your work programme for that states very clearly that you've got an email update coming in September and then a full update to the committee happening in December. And the reasons that those dates, I think, were chosen, and I would just add also agreed, don't get me wrong, I understand not without some comment and some disappointment, but those dates were agreed by ONS, partly because officers made it very clear that that's when the information would actually be available. So this isn't a case of denying you access to information. It's the correct and true information that reflects where we are with that contract won't be available till the earliest September and in full. And I think it really is a case of you getting an ONS private briefing on the subject in September, the full information in December. So I go back to the rather kind of technical point that I made at the beginning. It is very difficult for me to sit here and agree, even with a motion whose substance, there are some bits of it I can understand why you'd want it, whilst also acknowledging that you have a timetable for when you're going to get it. I can't agree to this motion myself because I know it's undeliverable. I know we can't provide that information within 1 month. I know that you've been given a timetable that is reflective of when that information will genuinely exist. So I ask you members, when you know that ONS are getting the information in September and December respectively, there's an update that's been given today, yesterday. I would also respectfully ask Councillor Goodridge that you also can email the portfolio holder with some of these questions. I'm sure she'll confirm, but I don't think you have at any point emailed the portfolio holder actually asking for any of the information that you've requested here. Much of it, of course, would have been provided had you done so, or indeed anybody else. So from that point of view, I have to suggest that this motion either be deferred or that we vote it down because I can't comply with it. And I would ask officers again how council can pass a motion which we can't contractually comply with. I don't see how such a motion is constitutionally valid. The contract with the with Wilmot Dixon, when we sign it, has specific timeframes for the provision of some of the information of which is referred to in this motion. Allocation, a validation of the budget, which is done not only with that partner, but with, I think it's Atkins Realis, I think it is, to validate those numbers. Can council officers pass, this is a question to officers, can we pass a motion which we know is contractually impossible to deliver upon? Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's all I can really say. We cannot deliver on the outcome of this motion, even if it passes.
Thank you. I would like to say this motion has been ruled in order prior to this meeting, and so I'm minded, in fact, will allow it to proceed to debate.
So, point of personal explanation, Mr. Mayor. I don't believe officers were aware of the contractual stipulations of the Wilmot Dixon contract. In the absence of that information, I entirely understand why a Democratic Services officer would render it in order, but knowing that that information exists, I would respectfully request that that be reconsidered.
Let's hear from our monitoring officer.
Thank you. So the council can call on the executive to take actions that the executive can't do. The executive would then be advising the council that it could not comply at that stage. So my suggestion would be, you can, as members, you can either choose to alter the motion to something that the executive says it can comply with, or you can call on the executive and the executive can say, we can't comply and these are the reasons why we can't comply. That's a matter for members, but it doesn't stop the council actually agreeing the motion.
So if I'm here correctly, it's open to any member to produce an amendment, which then, of course, we can debate in the normal way. I haven't actually got any more speakers. I have. Hooray, hooray. Who did we get first? Councillor Murray. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is another issue, unfortunately, about lack of notice to councillors and keeping councillors informed. I think what they want to know for their residents and people asking them and the people in Cranley are saying, what's happening? And I think, to me, this motion made that happen. And it didn't need to. I think it's unfortunate that councillors have to make a motion to get this information into the public domain. And I didn't read the briefing which was sent out last night until this afternoon. So the first I heard about it was when I listened to BBC Radio Surrey this morning and heard Liz saying that she's intervened personally to delay it because she wanted to help with the Christmas trading. Now, if I'm right, there's 18 months build in this. It'll probably go to 2 years. So they're going to lose 2 more Christmases by delaying it. That one, you may well have saved one, but you've added another one at the other end. So I just think it's one of those things where I think because of the election, because of the mayor making, this is the first time really we've been able to have any sort of debate or any sort of report. And looking at the tonight's agenda, there wasn't very much on it other than these 2 motions. So we would have been sat here, we'd have probably gone, if those 2 motions weren't on here and we weren't discussing the last 2 things, we'd have all been home by 8 o'clock, which is probably not a bad idea. But, but all I'm saying is that this is an important issue for people in Cranley. And we just wanted members just to have a bit of advance notice instead of me having to hear about it on the radio this morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. During Councillor Goodrich, when he was speaking, I understand that somebody made a statement on BBC Radio this morning regarding this and giving the reasons for delay as not wishing to interrupt with Christmas. Now, that's an untruth because that is not the reason, is it? As far as I'm aware.
I think you just crossed a line by saying the word untruth. If you could
take
withdraw
that
that
back.
would be
I
helpful.
take that word back and say, it's a misrepresentation of what's really happening. Because I think we're now being told that the reason it's delayed is because the signing of a document. Now, this is a bit like when you read something in the newspaper, you get a big headline on the front of a newspaper that tells you that David Beckham has done something strange. And then when they retract it, they put it as a very small paragraph on page 37 in tiny type when they say it's wrong. I think we need the BBC to have a proper statement from us to say that was a misrepresentation of why it's delayed, because all the people in Cranley think we're saving Christmas and we're not.
Thank you very much. Councillor Liz Townsend.
Thank you, thank you. I am not going to retract that. I will explain about my comment. And as one of the ward councillors of Cranley, no one wants to see this project delivered more than I do. And I understand why residents and businesses are asking questions, and they do deserve clear information as the project progresses and reassurances about matters such as parking during construction. However, I cannot support this motion because it does not present an accurate picture of where the project currently stands, and it is not deliverable. The pre-construction services agreement, the PCSA, is currently with our legal teams. There are a small number of final commercial matters still being concluded, and that process may take another week or two. Alongside this, and in the face of well-publicised construction sector volatility, the project costs have been independently scrutinised and tested by Atkins Realis, who have confirmed that the project currently remains within the budget approved by Council. This is progress and responsible stewardship of public money. Once the PCSA is signed, we will be able to confirm the detailed programme, currently anticipated to see construction begin in early 2027. When I spoke to Wilmot Dixon last week, we acknowledged that the timescale was behind, and I requested an additional delay for Christmas. Yay! We did save Christmas. So with the completion in autumn 2028, I have requested, as I said, for that slight delay because of the important trading period, which means that it will only affect one Christmas, not two Christmases. So 2027 Christmas, but not 2028 Christmas. The PCSA will also enable the contractor and officers to finalise the construction methodology, logistics, including the detailed parking strategy, traffic management and other mitigation measures, as well as the robust contract cost, which can only be provided once the set time set out in the PCSA elapses, and that could be another 16 to 18 weeks, because that is the amount of time to do the market testing and for that to be independently looked at by Atkins Realis and our officers, of course. We do not need a council motion to require a process and progress that is already underway. It's completely unnecessary. Nobody has contacted me about this. Nobody has emailed me about this. Nobody has asked for information about this from me. As the local ward councillor, I want to see as much information as possible published on the project online hub. However, these final stages inevitably involve commercially sensitive negotiations, which limit what can properly be placed in the public domain. Councillors, as I said, can contact officers as well as myself for information at any time, and they can receive exempt information which cannot be put into the public domain. As I said, we met with Wilmot Dixon last week. Officers on the back of that issued a briefing. Obviously, they were in the process of typing it and wanted you to have it available for today, but we were already doing that. They've arranged a meeting later this month with the Cranley Chamber of Commerce and the Business Improvement District. We were doing that anyway. Further meetings with other stakeholders, including the Parish Council, are also being arranged. We were doing that because we anticipated by then the PCSA would be signed. And again, surprised. You don't need a full motion to take this to ONS. Just do it. The chairman, just do whatever you want to do. You've got a review coming up anyway of this. It's completely unnecessary to have that in here. So for me, this motion does not change in any way the project is being managed or provide any direction that is not already being taken forward. And for these reasons, I cannot support it.
Thank you very much. I've got three speakers: Councillor Fairclough, Councillor Davidson, Councillor Ken Reid. So, Councillor Fairclough.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The motion does make a number of reasonable requests, in my opinion, in particular point 6. However, I suspect the combination of commercial sensitivities and due process will make publication of a complete response within 7 days of the signing of the PCSA impractical, even impossible. As a result, although I do have sympathy with some of the objectives, I simply cannot support the motion as it stands. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Davidson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let me get it first out of the way first. I fully support the Cranley Leisure Centre development, and I'd like it to be in place ASAP. But I do have concerns about both the costing for it and associated with that is the way it's being built. But that's a minor detail which we've been through at previous meetings. But the key issue which I have is the communication about what is happening. I fully agree with the sentiment behind the motion that we need to be a good deal more open, and you don't have to be asked, communicate. And this is a major change for the Cranley district and the facilities at the center of the town. And I can understand why there is a lot of concern about what's happening, when it will happen, what the disruption will be. But where we seem as a organization, I don't know whether it's officers or the executive, but we seem to like to hide behind a wall and occasionally throw a grenade over with a general information leaflet. I think it would be much more helpful to our communities if it was communication without having to be asked for it. A monthly update, if only just say there's been no change, we're waiting on a completion of a report from these chaps, whatever their name is. But I think the other thing which worries me is the fact that what our leader said, that there's a validation process going on. Now, does that mean that this project is going to come back again to the council as part of the validation? Will we find that we're going to make a saving because the costs have actually been overestimated initially? Or are we going to be asked for another 2 million? It does concern me that this is going on and on. It has all the shades of HS2. Well, going on, delayed, it's not going to happen. More money is required. I do want this leisure centre to be built and built as soon as possible. And I really would appreciate officers and the portfolio holder for this project expediting matters as quickly as they can. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Ken Reid.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The lack of an update on progress is not a recent phenomena. I personally, as a Cranley member, have been asking for information since December 2023 and have only received updates when I have chased them. And not even then. And on occasions, I have felt dismissed. I take no pleasure in saying what I'm saying, but that is how I've felt. However, if the purpose of this motion was to ask members to receive an update on the timetable, milestones, opening date, and proposed parking provision during the build phase, I could support it. Unfortunately, the motion goes much further by committing the executive to publish information that may not be available within the timescales of 1 month. And in fact, we've heard that it won't be. However, it is clear that councillors have generally remained uninformed on progress. The elephant in the room. Although there are serious concerns around the provision of sufficient parking during the build phase, I now believe that this is the least of our worries. The latest update on the build start date is likely to mean that the price will have increased. As we all know, any increase will need the approval of members of the West Surrey Unitary Shadow Council, a council that will already likely be in a perilous financial situation come vesting day. Sadly, the failure to progress this project in a timely manner will result in it becoming unaffordable. In short, I now believe that the new Cranley Leisure Centre will never happen. I would love to be proven wrong. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Reid. I've just got Councillor Hyman, and then I propose to go to the seconder and proposer to sum up. Councillor Hyman.
I very much agree with what the concerns of Councillor Reid there, and particularly Councillor Davidson. Agree with virtually everything he said, except for the officers and the executives standing behind a wall lobbing grenades. I don't know. I see them differently, but I do believe there is a serious problem here, and likely to be with cost control and the need, as Councillor Reid has just said, for it to come back. I mean, I'm really pleased about this motion. I'm happy to support it. I'm happy to support it because, well, actually, if the executive can't come back within a month with the information, they can at least come back and say, well, we should have it within another couple of weeks. We should have it within another month or whatever. We'll at least hear something. So I don't have any problem with that whatsoever. We've heard that from the monitoring officer and the mayor. There isn't an issue with whether or not the executive can comply with everything that's on the list. It's simply a matter of whether really we want to be kept informed on this. I think we all do. I don't see a good reason for voting against. If you look at the very handy briefing note that we've had, top paragraph of the second page, it tells us, and it talks about the cost pressures. It says, there is no current approval or assumption of additional funding beyond that already agreed. Well, that's meaningless because we know there is no current approval or assumption of additional funding. We know what the current approvals are. There can't be anything beyond that because otherwise it would have to have had approval. It says that there's no assumption of additional funding. Well, you're not allowed to assume additional funding. It's up to us to decide. So what a completely meaningless sentence that is. You go to the bottom, the very last words of this briefing is ensuring coordinated, timely and meaningful communication. So it would be nice to get some meaningful communication in respect of the additional funding that is going to be necessary. Because when an officer puts in there, I don't know how other people read these council documents, but when an officer writes there is no current approval or assumption of additional funding beyond that already agreed, it means, as Councillor Reid obviously recognised, that it means that someone's going to be coming back asking us for more money at some point. So please keep us updated on that as well, because that is something which is serious. And I don't want to be as negative as Councillor Reid in his thoughts of whether this will continue or not, because I think Cranley really does need a new leisure centre. I saw what it was like 8 years ago. I went around the basement of the old one looking at it. I'm sure it's got better since, as if. No, it's horrendous. I mean, and they need a new facility. 35 mil's a lot of money, but you can't get them cheaper, apparently, not if you want them to last. So, yeah, I fully support this. No reason whatsoever not to support the motion. Shall we go up to the chippy and get ourselves home to watch the second match? Cheers.
Thank you, Councillor Hyman. And we go to Councillor Austin, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think everyone in this chamber agrees. We all want to see a new leisure centre for Cranley. We've waited a long time. Residents deserve modern, high-quality facilities. And I do count myself a Greater Cranley resident. I'm there every day, sometimes 4, 5, 6 times a day. I'm a mum, a Cranley school mum. I'm the swim club mum. And I use all of the shops all the time. So I want to thank Councillor Goodridge for bringing this motion, because sadly, judging by the statements made over the last 24 hours, it has actually already achieved part of its purpose, and that is about communication and passage of information. I discovered the significant delay to this project after I went on the radio this morning, because this motion prompted the portfolio holder to go on and announce them. Now, I do, and I take no pleasure in saying this, but I have seen multiple emails to Councillor Townsend asking questions about timings, and I haven't seen a response. I know that the meeting with the Chamber of Commerce, which was referenced again by Councillor Townsend, was made the day after this motion was published. So again, I'm pleased that the motion has actually had some impact in pushing things forward. But I do have to question now. We're talking about no new leisure centre for at least 2.25 years, back end of 2028. Construction start delayed until at least early 2027. This was very sad news to Cranley Swim Club when I told them today. If this motion had not been brought before council, I genuinely wonder how many more months residents, businesses, retailers would have been left waiting before they were told. Only last week at Overview and Scrutiny, there appeared to be no information publicly available. The sudden change in communication clearly has been prompted by the motion. This is the largest capital project this council's ever undertaken. Costs have significantly risen and the programme has substantially slipped. Let's set this alongside Broadwater Park, now projected to take twice as long as the London Olympics to deliver. Hazelmere Fairground, which is now back to the drawing board after years stagnating. 69 High Street, God, I don't think we've all got the mental strength to go there, but it's still a construction site nearly 5 years on. This executive cannot, I'm afraid, point to a strong record on project delivery. But the purpose of this motion is simple. It asks for openness. It asks for the openness for the people and businesses that we serve. We need a construction timetable. We need a detailed parking statement. Residents need detail on the support. How will they be supported, these businesses? The executive clearly has got a plan for parking and traffic management. I see no reason why members and the public cannot be brought into that conversation now and updated. Early engagement may even improve the final solution. Finally, I cannot help reflecting on the pressure members were placed under only a few months ago when considering this scheme. We were repeatedly told the existing leisure centre is on its last legs, the boiler's close to failing, and then any request for further information by us naughty Conservatives risk delaying the project and leaving us responsible should something go wrong. That was the inference. Today, we discover the ward councillor has herself pushed the programme back. Look, I will support that decision if it's right for Christmas trade and if it's right for Cranley Village. Has Councillor Townsend asked the retailers what their view is? But it also feels like double standards to me. What we need to achieve is residents, businesses, members kept properly informed, openness, transparency. I hope this will now happen. For those reasons, I request all members, cross-party, from all sides of the chamber, please support this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And you're the last speaker, Councillor Goodrich.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The point that I was going to mention about the Chamber of Commerce has been made. It does seem strange to me that the portfolio holder should tell the people of this borough via the radio that she is doing everybody a favour, the Chamber of Commerce a favour, by delaying it when she hasn't even spoken to the Chamber of Commerce about it. Have they requested it? Not that I'm aware of. The points that I would make is that I have amended the motion so that the updated project timetable, including key milestones and anticipated opening date, are left to after the agreement has been signed, which does at least give more time for the executive to supply that information. But to suggest it's impossible for the executive to tell us the reasons for the delay from summer 26 to now, quite openly, when some of it has changed since we got the information note. Hence, I don't know how many months it was going to be before Christmas that it would have otherwise started, but we now know it's going to be after Christmas sometime. Confirmation of whether the project remains within approved budget. Well, you can keep telling us that, and that seems to be something that we've already been told, so that's covered. But the detailed parking strategy and how the traffic management is going to be must have been worked out, surely, by now, because after all, you put in a SIL application to cover some of this, so presumably you knew the cost of it. So if you've done a SIL application and supplied this council in its SIL hat with details of how you're going to manage the parking and what it's going to cost, can't we know? Cannot the Chamber of Commerce know? Cannot the people of Cranley know? Subject to there may be some amendments if things don't work out quite, but what is the plan? Is there a plan? Or are we still trying to scratch our head and work out how we're going to deal with the parking? So I can see that under 4 and 5, that can be done and information can be given. And as has been pointed out by the mayor through officers. If there's a problem in supplying that information, you can say, I can't supply it and why. And there has to be a jolly good reason, as far as I'm concerned. So I think it's important that 2 to 6 are answered, and there's nothing in the debate has said why any of those cannot be fulfilled. But I accept number 1 is tricky before the contract signed, hence the amendment today. So I therefore commend to the council that this motion be accepted and vote in favour, and I would ask for a recorded vote.
Point of personal explanation, Mr. Mayor.
Sure.
On the contrary, there was no statements as to clauses 2 to 6 being deliverable or not. I said very clearly that there are elements that could not be delivered because of when the contract was signed and when it would be executed. I made it very clear that the executive cannot deliver on portions of this motion.
I agree, that's what you said. Yeah. I need for however many members to stand, please, for recorded vote. Yes, that's fine.
Councillor Austin.
4.
Councillor Barker Lomax.
4.
Councillor Beeman.
4.
Councillor Busby.
Against.
Councillor Cavalieri.
Against.
Councillor Clark.
4.
Councillor Coburn. 4. Councillor Crowe.
Against.
Councillor Davidson. Councillor Denis. Councillor Deuce.
Against.
Councillor Earwaker.
4.
Councillor Fairclough.
Against.
Councillor Follows.
Against.
Councillor Gale. 4. Councillor Goodridge.
4.
Councillor Hess. Councillor Higgins.
Abstain.
Councillor Hyman.
4.
Councillor Keane.
Against.
Councillor Keel.
Against.
Councillor Lawton. Councillor Long.
Against.
Councillor MacLeod.
4.
Councillor Martin.
4.
Councillor Merriweather. Councillor Mirrlees.
Against.
Councillor Monroe.
Against.
Councillor Murray.
4.
Councillor Nicholson. Councillor Ken Reid.
Against.
Councillor Ruth Reid.
Against.
Councillor Paul Rivers.
Against.
Councillor Penny Rivers.
Against.
Councillor Spence.
Against.
Councillor Steiger. Councillor Sullivan.
4.
Councillor Liz Townsend.
Against.
Councillor Philip Townsend. Councillor John Ward.
4.
Councillor Weldon.
Against.
And Councillor White.
That's 18 votes for the motion, 22 against and 2 abstentions. So that motion falls. No further business. I declare the meeting closed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.